2025 is one of the biggest years for my writing career so far. But in 2026, what am I working on as a traditionally published author who's trying to have the most productive year of her career so far? If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Sam and I am a traditionally published romance author. If you're not new to the channel, welcome back. And yes, I still have this bed sat in the middle of my office. I had my whole family here for Christmas from the US. We needed all the beds we could get. Like I said, 2025 is one of the biggest years of my writing career so far. And I want to talk about why that was, do a little bit of a 2025 in review. I wrote 2.5 books in 2025, and more specifically, I wrote 285,435 words. And that does not count like this many thousand words from draft 1, this many thousand words from draft 2. No. That's like finished. All the projects that I worked on total, that's how much I wrote that is seeing the light of day. I edited 2 books. You may have heard me talk about this before if you've been around the channel for a while, but I use an idea curation method called index cards, borrowed from Anne Lamott. She talks about it in her book, Bird by Bird. I did a whole video review of that book, so I'll leave a link to it in the description. It's a great book, but her index card method has been amazing for me for capturing ideas, and the number of index cards that I put digitally into my folder for 2025, this is crazy, 411. Social media was a bit slower than I had hoped last year. I only made 23 YouTube videos, sorry, and I made 80 TikToks. My goals had been 52 YouTube videos, so I got less than halfway there, and 104 TikToks, so I got proportionally closer on that one. Some highlights of my 2025 as a writer. I got to do my first ever signing conventions. I did them both in back-to-back weekends end of last year. I vlogged that whole thing, so I'll leave a link in the description to that. Also, in between those 2 signings, I took myself on a writing retreat that I think was the most productive I've ever been on. Again, I vlogged it, so I'll leave a link in the description. You get the gist, but that was incredible. I also got to interview Samantha Shannon for her Bone Season Book 5 book tour. She said I was one of the best interviewers that she'd ever had. That was amazing. Of course, my 4th book, Date Night, came out. That's the 2nd book in the Roll for Romance series. That came out on my birthday, the 31st of July. And then, of course, the big announcement that I had this year is I signed with my agent, Megan Carroll at Watson Little. She's phenomenal, and I'm super excited to be working with her. We've already got some really exciting things in the works. Let's talk a little bit about things that didn't work out the way I wanted to in 2025, because they're going to inform some of my goals and projects for 2026. First of all was that I was a bit too ambitious around content creation. I have this tendency when things are going really well to try to double down and then get burnt out. So there were a couple times last year where I got really in the flow of content creation, and on TikTok I'd be like, I'm going to post every single day, and on YouTube I was like, I think I can do 2 videos a week and stuff like that. And then it just was faster for me to burn out. And then I would go weeks or if not months without posting anything. And I think it was because I was maybe a little too ambitious with my initial goals, but more I was too ambitious. I got too ambitious as I was going through the process. So I just need to curb my enthusiasm around those things a little bit more this year. Another thing that wasn't going to plan is my tech stack needs a little bit of work. I am mostly pleased with the big cornerstone pieces of tech that I use in my writing process. I use Scrivener for drafting, but there are a lot of things that I use to support my writing process that I want to look at replacements for. A lot of technology is going the generative AI route, and that is really frustrating as an artist. So I need to find alternatives, but also there are a few parts of my process that just aren't very efficient. So I need to look at how to make that better. A couple of other things that didn't go as well in 2025 on reading. I've noticed, like a lot of people, that my attention span has been getting a lot worse. And I think part of that is because I also edit books on a freelance basis. So I'm reading my own books that I'm writing. I'm reading client books that I'm editing. And by the time I get to reading for pleasure, my attention span for physical reading is kind of zapped. And I'm really struggling to sink into a book the way that I used to. I'm relying a lot more on audiobooks to be able to enjoy reading, and that's fine. I definitely believe audiobooks are reading. That is not up for debate on this channel. I personally, for myself, would like to try to recoup my attention span for reading physically a little bit more. So this year I'm going to be thinking about that as I go throughout the year. So that's 2025 in review. Now let's talk about 2026. And I've got 3 main themes for kind of my life for 2026 that inform some of my goals. One of those is lead with curiosity. Curiosity is one of my big values in life. And I think that as I get more successful, as I have more things under contract, there are a lot of these big pieces of macro accountability that are dictating what I do and when I do it. And that's fine. That's great. I'm super fortunate for that. But I also want to give myself space to kind of lead with curiosity and do things that pique my interest and not constantly force myself to focus on certain things. And that means opening up more time to do that instead of trying to take away time from the obligatory things. The second theme is something that I saw in an article that I'll try to find and leave a link in the description, but it's friction maxing. Technology is trying to eliminate all friction from our lives. If you want an answer to something, just ask ChatGPT, or even just Googling something, or on social media, you're kind of expecting the answers to things to all be served up to you rather than having to do a deep dive. I saw a really interesting interview with R.F. Kuang where she was talking about anti-intellectualism in academia. I'm not going to talk about anti-intellectualism as a whole right now. I am noticing signs of anti-intellectualism in myself. Not anti-intellectualism as in not wanting intellectualism or not valuing intellectualism, but behaviorally not behaving in an intellectual way, not displaying intellectual rigor and analytical rigor. And that's something I want to improve in my life, in my processes, in my reading, things like that. So friction maxing is a term that this article used to talk about ways that we can kind of take a few steps back in terms of efficiency in some of the processes that we use for gathering information, making decisions, stuff like that. And then the last theme is realistic goals. I think I just want to be realistic about everything. And that's not just the goals that I'm setting for myself now at the beginning of the year, but it's also, if I'm speaking with my agent or an editor and we're talking about when I can deliver something, being realistic about that and not just making the decision based on the enthusiasm I feel in that moment. So those are my themes. Now let's talk about the specific projects that I have on. So these are all of the projects that I have at the moment, 3 of which are active projects, things I'm actively working on or about to be working on. And then there's 2 that are just ideas that I'm nurturing. My first active project is, of course, the book that I have coming out this year, which is Meet Cute. When I'm filming this now, I've turned in my structural edit. I'm waiting on my line edits, trying to figure out timelines for publication and stuff like that. I should have announcements for you very soon in that regard. I've seen initial sketches of the cover and it's amazing. I think it's the best Roll for Romance cover yet, potentially. It's so good. So very excited to share more about that with you, but that's obviously my first active project. My second active project is one that I have just, as of filming this, started drafting, and that is going by codename Project Tour at the moment. I'm working on sample chapters of that with my agent. We worked out a synopsis end of 2025, and so now we're going to be working on sample chapters, and then hopefully once that's under contract, then I'll write the rest of it. Not 100% sure yet how that process is going to work out, but for now we're focusing on sort of the first 25 to 30% of the book. And then my last active project is Project Capricorn. This is a book that I have plotted. I have figured out what's going to happen in the book mostly. I haven't finished the plotting, but I'm most of the way there. This I'm going to start drafting immediately when I'm done with the sample chapters of Project Tour. So my beginning of 2026 is going to look like drafting Project Tour, at some point in that going to be taking a break to do line edits for Meet Cute, finish drafting Project Tour sample chapters, immediately start drafting Project Capricorn. And probably going to be looking at trying to finish Project Capricorn still in the first half of the year, at least that initial draft. So it's going to be a busy 2026. Project Capricorn is very similar to the books I've been putting out lately. You've got Chainmail, Date Night, Meet Cute. It's in that same vein. Project Tour is a little bit different. It is still genre romance and it's still a bit nerdy, but in a different way. And it kind of starts to bleed into another genre a little bit, which is something I'm very excited to experiment with. This is an idea that I've had for a long time. When I was first speaking to my agent, it was one of the ideas that I was talking to her about that I was most excited about, and she was most excited about it too. So that's what we decided to work on first together. But it's a little bit of a departure from my Roll for Romance series, so I do really hope that you like it. And then I have 2 projects projects that are ideas that I'm just nurturing at the moment. I haven't actively plotted them, but I have pretty good ideas, and I'm in the stage of, I have a Scrivener project file for them, and I'm starting to put specific ideas into those project files. The first one is Project Swashbuckle, and this is again in a very similar vein to my Roll for Romance series, so sort of a nerdy rom-com, and more like my Roll for Romance series kind of got that focus on like gaming and cosplay and fairs and stuff like that. The other project is a complete genre departure, and this is not something that I am working on commercially. This is not something I'm working on thinking, ooh, I really am hoping to publish this in the next couple of years. No, nothing like that. It's just a passion project. It's just something that I'm interested in and will just chip away at in the background over the years. And that is Project Posty. It's fantasy, and that's not something I've ever written before. That's not something that I ever have seen myself branching into for publication. So that is truly just a passion project. But one of my goals, as we're going to get to in a minute, for this year is to give myself space to play. And that is one area where I want to give myself space to play. Now, obviously these projects that I'm nurturing, they're going to have to take the back burner if other projects come up for the later half of the year, or if, you know, Project Tour gets picked up and we need to move beyond the sample chapters. I'll need to do edits on Project Capricorn. I don't know what the second half of 2026 is going to look like at all. Just as much as the first half, I know exactly what it's going to look like. So it's all a little bit up in the air, but I would really love to be able to take a couple of steps forward in both of these nurturing projects before the end of the year. So that brings us to my goals for 2026. I shared 3 of these goals on social media and in the comments of, I think, my last video or the video before that. And then in the vlog that I posted last week, you will have seen, if you have watched it, that I did this tradition, this like German Yuletime tradition, where you write down 13 goals on pieces of paper, and then you put them in a pot and you pull one out each day and you burn it. And the one that's left at the end is the one that you are taking forward into the next year. That was an interesting journey, and I highly recommend that you watch the video if you are interested in like goal setting and like balancing conflicting goals and stuff like that. But we definitely ended up in the right place with that. My goal that I drew at the end of that was to write 3 books in 2026. So I feel pretty confident that that's going to be Project Capricorn, probably Project Tour, although that could only be half of a book. And then maybe Project Swashbuckle would be the next one after that. But again, I don't know how the second half of 2026 is going to go. So I don't know. I don't know what those 3 books are going to be, but I'm going to do it. My other 3 goals that I shared were 1, to make more time to experiment and to play. This is playing with genre. I've got a project that I'm doing with a friend where we're gonna swap a story back and forth and each of us write a chapter. No idea what that's gonna look like. I've done the first chapter and I've sent that to her like a couple days ago. No idea what's gonna happen with that. It's just a fun exercise. She's very talented at storytelling, but like in a very different way to me. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how that comes together. The second one is find a good pace without burning out. As you can tell from the way I've been talking about this, it's going to be a busy year and I need to find a pace that works for me without burning out. And again, I need to be realistic when I'm in the flow, not trying to increase the flow just because I'm excited about it, but actually just maintaining consistency. I've built my pace pretty well over the last couple of years. It's been about 1.5 years now that I've been self-employed, and in that time I've built up my pace to be faster. But even before that, when I was working full-time, I worked really hard to like establish a pace and a cadence that really worked for me. But I'm gonna need to step that up this year, so that'll be interesting. So I need to figure out how to do that without burning out. And then finally, stay focused on my writing. This kind of came out of that Yuletime goal setting vlog that I did, but I want to make sure that the other goals that I have, the other things that I want to do this year in my personal life, in my hobbies, for content creation, that those never start to eclipse writing in terms of priority. That writing stays front and center, because that's what I want for my career. That's what I want for my future. I can get excited about other things. I can make time for other things, but I also need to stay focused and like keep writing as my North Star. I've got a couple of vlogs coming up for my next couple of videos. The next one that I'm doing, I'm really excited. Last year I put out some surveys asking you guys to choose between different emojis to help build like a writing day for me, and I'm finally going to be filming that vlog. Super excited about that. That's going to be my next video. And then the one after that, I'm actually going to be using a tarot deck that my friend and I made to decide my writing. And that's going to be a little bit chaotic, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And you'll get to see the deck in the video and stuff like that. So if you want to see those, make sure that you hit subscribe. A little bit of a shorter video for you this week. I just wanted to give a little state of the nation situation. I know that the world is not always the brightest place at the moment. And so I hope that you're taking care of yourself. I hope you're taking care of each other. And I hope that you're able to find, you know, escape or catharsis or revolution in what you're working on. Creativity and artistic expression, it's powerful, not just for us personally, but societally, and it's important. So I wish you all the best with it. And let me know in the comments what your goals for the year are or what projects you're working on. I'm always really excited to see people's, obviously, titles if you're writing something that you have titled already, but also I love when people have like project code names, and I'd love to see what your code names are. I really struggle to come up with my code names. Like just while filming this video, I had a different code name for Project Swashbuckle, and I'd been going back and forth, and I had written down the other one, and I just while reading my notes decided to say Swashbuckle instead. So that's what it is now. It's Project Swashbuckle. I put it out into the universe. Can't take it back now. And I'll see you in next week's video.